Hey guys, today I'm going to be painting the Werewolf. It is a Kickstarter exclusive for Massive Darkness. The mold lines are actually quite simple, just kind of goes down the arm, a little bit in the fur here, but it's just barely textured. It comes off quite well. I actually really like the Werewolf in the game. He's actually pretty interesting. The more wounded he gets, the stronger he gets. So the moment he has more wounds than his half his health, in other words, when he's half dead, he becomes stronger. And he becomes even stronger when he's in the greater roaming monster stage. He actually has quite a bit of health, but low defense, but he hits really hard right from the start at 2 red, and then that jumps up to 3 red and a yellow. So he hits hard, has low defense, and then hits even harder at the end. So he's kind of the guy you want to burst damage and make sure you kill in one turn, or if you can, you don't want to get a counterattack on him. So you can see on his leg there is a little bit of a kind of a piece there, but it's not too bad. See, there you go, and it's gone. There, now it's gone. All right, and again, just trimming it ever so slightly. The mold lines are very, very small. When they're this small, you could probably, if you didn't care too much, you could probably even get away without doing this. But if you're going to spend the time to paint it, you may as well make it nice. There's a slight mold line where his torso meets his pants, especially in the back there. I find that so I'm going to be getting some green stuff soon, but I'm actually okay with this because it just looks kind of like a shadow, right? It just makes his kind of, not pants, but tarp or whatever look okay. Rekarth Flesh is coming out. That's going to be kind of the main base coat here for 2/3 of the mini here. It's going to cover everything but his pants, essentially. Not pants. I don't know what those are. It's it's like a tunic. It's a tunic. That's why it's a word choice I'm going to pick here. If you looked at the concept art, he's actually quite light. He's not like a brown wolf or anything. A lot of times when you see a werewolf, it's just kind of brown, and he is I don't know. I find when a werewolf is brighter that it actually seems more realistic that it was once a human. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyway, I like him. He's cool. But this is just, as you can see, I have my regiment brush out, and I'm just covering him. I'm not too concerned about it. I painted some of the gold trinkets he has in his fur. I don't know how those are held on, but on his back, I'm going to paint over it in gold. This is such a light color, it's pretty much equivalent to the gray, so I'm not being too careful. I will avoid the tunic. Well, you could probably even get away with that. I'm going to, because it'll give me a slight contrast between where the tunic and fur ends, so I don't make any mistakes when painting the tunic. Otherwise, it would just go from a gray blob to a Rekarth Flesh blob, right? When you paint, you get those details that pop out that you don't always see, kind of like how his tunic is ripped there. Some flat blue. I'm just going to cover the entire tunic in this, minus, I think, a single clasp. I do have a smaller brush out here just because I want to be a little more organized in where I put the paint. And, of course, I see that while I'm blobbing paint everywhere. It's a little too watered down for my taste. So, I believe I set it on the wet palette, and then it just kind of stayed a little too long, and my paints tend to get wetter the longer they're on the wet palette than when I first just mix water in there. So it's going to need a second coat as well, and some touch-up. That will be off camera, though, so just pretend I did this again, but better, and that's the second coat. But yeah, I'm coloring the bottom in, so it looks like it actually covers. There's not a whole lot there. Agrax Earth Shade. I'm going to cover his entire fur with this. This is to kind of add a little bit of depth and really make that texture pop. I'm not going to leave it like this, though. This is far too brown for what he should be, so I'm going to bring that Rekarth Flesh back up. But first, again, with the regiment brush, and fairly heavily, I'm perfectly fine getting some real depth in here with that. And I think it makes him look a lot more muscular and really adds the to the fur, because while his kind of mane or whatever that is in the back is, has a lot of texture on his legs and arm and even like upper chest and stuff. There is some texture, but it's not much. You can see there in the back of the leg. And I really wanted that to be obvious that that's fur and not like skin, right? Even though I'm painting it in a flesh shade. So you could have waited and done the Screaming Skull first, but the Drushi Violet, this is a purple shade that I'm putting on his tunic. Again, I'm not going to leave it here, but this is just to add some definition. As you can see, it pulls into the recesses and really kind of adds a lot of that texture for free, and then makes it to where you don't have to highlight quite as much, or at least I don't know, it gives you the darkest color. Okay, here is that same Rakarth flesh. I'm just dry brushing it on, and I'm going to do that on pretty much the whole mini here. I'll do some select highlighting later. So right now it's just kind of bringing it mostly back up to that. It's a pretty heavy-handed dry brush. And so you can see it's kind of covering his arms much more, and that is perfectly fine. It's his kind of base color. So he should be this color, and then the shade just acts as to show the defining points, like his hands and the fur and whatnot. Again, you can see that skull there. That's what I meant by the screaming skull. I'm going to add some screaming skull there, and then add that Agrak or shade back on. So if you are going to paint it similar to this, you can do that first and only pull out the shade once. One less time you got to clean the brush, I suppose. But again, this is a very, very quick model. And there's not a whole lot of colors either. So it's pretty simple and easy to do. It's not too bad at all. And I actually didn't see, here's that screaming skull, and that's going to be on his teeth. It'll be for his kind of eyes there. He doesn't have pupils in the concept art. I won't give them here. His nails, and then that skull. Or nails, talons, claws. There we go. His claws. Anyway, this model seemed really plain to me. I liked the pose, but the actual model itself seemed rather plain, almost like it was a model from a couple years ago. But once painted, first of all, I get giddy really anytime I can paint a model in an afternoon and be completely done with him and have an awesome looking model. That's a great news anyway, right? Because that means you can pump out more and he looks great on the board, and I don't know, I'm pretty happy with him. I don't spend a terrible amount of time, and I think that's okay. Gehenna's Gold. This is kind of the another bit of color, which I'm very glad they added this to him, though I don't get how it's in his fur, but that's okay. If they hadn't done this, I don't think I would have liked it nearly as much. It was just been gray and blue at that point, right? Which is kind of boring. And there's that shade on the skull. So be sure to put it there. And a tiny bit on the claws, but not too much. And we're up to highlighting. So this is adding white to the flat blue. I apologize. This is just the flat blue again, without the white. So I'm bringing it back up to the color without any purple shades. So it is in fact blue, and there's just a little bit of a purplish shade in the crevices and all the folds and whatnot. Add a little bit of texture. I'm adding it to the bottom too, just to bring it back up to blue. Here is the white, as you can tell. A little bit heavy on the top there, but then I got it under control afterwards and powered through it and ignored the fact that I ruined that first line, which I tend to do. But with enough highlights, I think it looks just fine. And this is, again, just further adding the texture. If you didn't do this, I don't think this part would look nearly as good. It's one of the few times I think highlighting is almost necessary for this. You couldn't really dry brush it too well just because of all the angles and stuff. It'd be kind of hard. You'd essentially be highlighting with your dry brush, which defeats the whole purpose. So you may as well highlight this part. And I'm going to bring that skull back up. I went straight to a white. I prefer, because these are so far away, to have the skulls more pop out with their shade in the eyes sockets and the mouth socket and nose. So I actually added a little bit of white to that screaming skull to make it pop. And this is now adding some white to the Rakarth flesh, and I'm just putting it kind of where it is in the concept art. He's a little bit brighter, like in his face and his shoulders and his mane. And I ended up bringing this farther out of his mane, but just a hint of it so that it adds a little bit more of a tonal range to this color. And I'm giving him some fairly drastic tufts. I actually like this because, again, I think it just changes up the model a little bit, right? So it's not just all the same color, because there's not necessarily a whole lot going on here. And this kind of more drastic, it's the same color, just brighter, right? And so I think that really adds to it. So it was that little bit in the mane, and then a tiny bit onto the kind of the end of the tail there. And now we're on to basing. So I'm not quite done with the model. We'll come back to that, but I'm going to add a little blotch of kind of cobblestone sort of stones here, and then I'm going to add kind of a row of one that's slightly broken off. I don't know, just trying to do different shapes, trying to make it look kind of unique, so it's not all samey. I'm not doing, a terrible amount to these basings, but I have to do so many of them, and they're just on a board game anyway. It's not like I'm entering a competition. So I have a single one coming up. I don't know how much it adds. You can be the judge of that. So this is kind of my trail of it here, right? Just kind of a little strip. So right here is going to be that single one. And I'll pop that down there. It's also a very small flat one. Here's the Ronix hide. I told you I wasn't quite done. I forgot to do his nose. His nose is kind of a brown. And again, I think it actually defines his face quite well. Once you have the nose there, it really adds to it. The Astro Granite Debris, this is that textured paint. It's just a gray with some, I don't know what's in that, but it's kind of cool. I like it. And I'm just going to scrape that all up in all those rocks' business and kind of get a good texture with it. So I'm getting it mostly how I like it, but I'm actually going for coverage here. Last time I did it, I really tried to finish molding it with the texture, but I think I can do this fast enough to where it's not going to dry or anything. And actually I want it slightly drier to really add the kind of texture I want. Not texture in that, I mean, it's all textured, but I want a little bit of, hills and valleys, I guess, right? But on a small scale. I want it a little bit more topographical and kind of not so flat and bumpy, right? Otherwise, you may as well just glue some sandpaper onto the bottom and paint that, and that's rather silly. I don't know, maybe that's actually kind of cool, but it's not what I'm doing, so more power to you if that's what you do. In fact, if that's what you do, let me know. I want to see that. But anyway, so again, just blobbing it on there and then using the smaller tool to kind of move it around and scrape it in there. You notice I'm actually going pretty quick here. I don't think it's too bad. And in fact, I'm one to not get upset if it gets on his feet. I feel like if he's stepping in this stuff, his feet might be a little dirty. So if there's some clumpiness there, that's all right. Some Steel Legion Drab, this is just to paint up those rocks. So first of all, they're not plain. And second of all, I think this matches some of the smaller pieces of cobblestone you see on a lot of the map tiles that are in the game. And so this, just kind of a final touch, and I don't know. I think if everything's going to look painted, that it should too. Otherwise, it just looks like little tiny rocks I put there. And that's not what I'm going for. I'm going for kind of a cobblestone effect. And the texture paint gets on a little bit. So this is bringing back their shape more or less a bit better. So, just a quick one coat, single coat, not terribly worried about it. Put some Gehenna's Gold on the rim. Again, all my Massive Darkness roaming monsters have gold. So this is kind of keeping in with that. This is still a board game piece, so I'm going to do that. Ignore the fact that the base is already gray. Just pretend you didn't see that, and I won't explain that. I've been painting too many Blood Rage miniatures, well, that's what I did, and didn't think about it. So Minnesota Gray, this is a fairly heavy dry brush, just to make that texture really pop. It makes it, while it has texture and it's obvious, when you set it on the board, it's not going to be as noticeable. This really makes it noticeable. You can really tell. Some gloss varnish. So I've already matte varnished it. This is now adding a gloss varnish to make that gold just kind of slightly shiny. I think it looks a little bit nicer and is more fitting for the gold. So I'm just going to go around the rim and finish that up pretty quick and then daub it onto his body where those gold pieces are and just make them slightly shiny. And here's a finished mini. I hope you enjoyed that one. It was pretty quick, pretty easy. I know I did. I'm very happy that I have him painted now. It's knock it out in a day, be done with it. He's got a really cool pose, so I love that. I'm digging the basing. I think that adds a whole lot to it. And a quite enjoyable mini. Fairly unique, because he is kind of wearing this kind of wrapped tunic that he's kind of bursting out of, and he's like, I don't know if he's ready for a pounce or if he just like jumped down and landed like some boss. I don't know. I like him though. He's pretty cool. I'm glad I have him. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching this. I hope it provided some kind of information or entertainment to you. I know I enjoyed painting it for you guys. Be sure to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. I've been pumping these out and I'll continue to do so at least once a week, maybe even two. The guys, if you really want to support this page, go in and check Patreon. I put a lot of, tidbits and sneak peeks there. Only $1 a month. That's $12 a year. I'd always appreciate it, but if not, that's fine too. I appreciate your comments, likes, and subscriptions all the same. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you again next time.